Hey everybody, welcome back to Masters of the Order. This is part 2 of my incredible conversation with Danny Keller. Part 1 is out there. If you haven't watched it yet, you probably want to go back and watch that before you dive into part 2. There's a lot in part 1 about Danny's history and work history up until joining Lucasfilm. And now this part 2, we're going to get really deep dive into some of the episodes of the Clone Wars that he directed and talk a little bit more Star Wars beyond that. So can't wait for you to watch. So we're just going to get right into it. This is part 2 of my conversation with Danny Keller. One of my big questions has always been, and of course you can only reveal what you can reveal, but right. How far did you all get with episodes when the show got canceled? Because are a lot of rumors out there. There's a lot of speculation that there were all these different story arcs. There was ones with Rex, in a fighter pilot with R2. There was a Kashyyyk storyline. There was, obviously, we've seen animatics of the Boba Fett Cad Bane. I think I even have it written down somewhere. Actually, I do. I have it in my notes. I took a long time ago. There's like a bounty hunter's arc. There was a thing with Barriss Offee. There was an Aura Singh arc. They released animatic episodes of Crystal Crisis on Utapau, right? And
yeah, I directed one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, Dark Disciple turned into a novel, which was Asajj and Quinlan.
Yeah. So which Quinlan is mentioned in the latest.
Yes,
which is awesome. I love that. Yeah.
There was a return, apparently something like Return to the Jedi Temple, where they go under the temple. That's a rumors.
So there was,
anyway. So
I can't speak to like specifics.
How much did you guys have?
I don't know that there were that much. There was definitely more. Like I've directed episodes that have not been made, like the Crystal Crisis, where it was the Kyber crystal that ended up being the crystal. That stuff you've seen story reels. That kind of is one of the stages that we get a show where we first show at the George. The other one I can speak to, and actually one of my, to me, I'm not just saying it because it's not out there yet, my favorite episodes that I've ever directed and I'm most proud of is part of that Boba Fett Cad Bane arc that Filoni teased.
Yes.
So that stuff's already, like, I can say that because it's already out there. It's known. He's already talked about it.
Yeah, I've seen the animatics at Celebration. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I would love to see that stuff. I don't know. Obviously, when Disney bought Lucasfilm, there was initially going to be a Boba Fett film, right?
Right.
The director of the
James Mangold, wasn't it?
No, I think it was it Frank Trank, right? He did
Justin Trank. Trank,
I think he was going to do it, and then
right.
There were some creative differences. Again, I don't know the personal story, to be honest. My point being is, like, I think maybe there were certain storylines that were like, wait, we might want to develop this information into TV or film or something. So I think maybe that put a hold on a lot of those things. But I mean, my hope is now that, especially like with what Dave showed at Celebration with Cad Bane and Boba, maybe now that that's kind of run its course, Cad Bane's dead.
Yeah.
Maybe now it's a time to come back and show that stuff. I don't know. I would love to, for me personally, one, because it's like work I've done and like a lot of people I worked with and my story artists did some amazing work on that. So I would love to see that have the light of day. But to answer your question, there's obviously stuff out there that you're aware of, but I don't know that it's as much as fans have theorized.
Yeah. So a little behind the scenes on the making of, who were some of your favorite voice actors that you really enjoyed working with?
Oh my God.
Obviously D. Bradley Baker was part of probably every episode.
Yeah, he's like, for his ability to do multiple voices is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, all of them were so good. What they brought to it and the life they brought to it. I don't know if anyone I could say I felt more than another.
Now,
It's always fun.
Now back then, were you doing them in person, or were some of them doing a lot of remote recording?
So that was all done down. So we were working in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then that was all done in Los Angeles. This was like pre-pandemic, so they would all do it together in a recording studio where a lot of them would act together. Mm-hmm. Now, some people, like if Anthony Daniels was doing C-3PO, he would do his on his own. Like I think he has his own recording studio, so he would do that.
And I knew Tom Kane does too, but I didn't know.
Tom Kane, yeah. So I haven't heard how he's doing, but God bless him. Hopefully he's.
Unfortunately, he's retired now. Can't.
I did.
Yeah, he officially retired.
Wow. But yeah, you're right. He had his own personal recording booth, so he would do Yoda. I think he did you, Lauren.
Yep, and the announcer at the beginning.
Oh yeah. The newsreel announcer.
The newsreel
really made it.
Absolutely.
It set the tone with like, okay, this was something that originally inspired George, but it also gave like a cool beginning to this show that separated it from Star Wars. Because I think when the new films like Solo comes out, or you could tell there was like, how do we introduce these films without doing the traditional fanfare?
Yes,
that's always a challenge. But
let's run down.
And you had Kat Tabor, right?
Yes, I thought the cat. Yeah,
I've
met most. I would say I've met most of the actors throughout my time. Going to celebrations and doing the show. Tom Kane, I've met a few times. Love him. I mean, he's one of the nicest guys. Kat was fantastic. We met during one of the celebrations in Orlando. I met D. Bradley Baker and James Arnold Taylor. But just great people. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think
it's always interesting.
I totally understand it's hard to pick because they are great people.
It was always fun because we would do our temp voices and time things out to those. So then once you get the final voices and start cutting them in, it's like, okay, where does it make the scene better?
Yes.
And then where is it like, oh wait, this scene is a lot shorter now. They read it faster. Or wait, the scene is a little bit longer now. We have to kind of like change it a little bit.
And it's funny, I had already met before any of the Clone Wars thing. I had met Sam Witwer when he worked on Smallville.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so years before he even got into Star Wars. So, but he's a great guy. And then I just recently met Ashley, my daughter. I brought my daughter to a con, and because Ahsoka's her favorite character, so she had all these questions she was going to ask her, but then froze, like you're talking about. Like that celebrity thing. Like she
especially
froze,
if she hears her speak.
Exactly.
Then it's
my
gosh, that's Ahsoka. Yeah.
Yes. But she got a little Funko Pop signed by her, so she's thrilled. And
that's awesome. Yeah, that was cool that they got their voices in the features.
Yes, yes.
Like it's kind of like saying, okay, that is Ahsoka.
I know.
I mean, with saying that, like I'm excited. I think Rosario Dawson is awesome. I've always loved her prior to Ahsoka, so I'm excited to see more of her in that role.
Yeah, it's so hard though because like when you hear Bo-Katan, like that's great because it's Katie, right?
Yeah. That's a little bit different. Yeah,
it is different. I wish they can do that. I know it's hard to do, translate them both, but that's great that they can do that when they can.
Yeah.
All right. So real quick, I want to just run down these episodes and then talk specifically about a couple of them. But so according to what I've got written down here, like you said, you started directing on season 4.
You might remind me of something.
Yeah. You started directing on season 4. You did Prisoners, which was episode 3. So I want our listeners to know which ones you did, so they can go back and watch these. Mercy Mission, which was episode 5, and then you did episode 13 and 18. 13 was Escape from Kandavo, and then episode 18 was Crisis on Naboo. Now, Escape from Kandavo, that's the Obi-Wan run, right?
That's right. That's when, man, that's a vicious one.
I love that episode.
I remember doing that
episode.
and you're like, wait, this is about slaves and they're being whipped and tortured, and this is a child's show. There was a lot of that, early on, like, wait, like who, because 1 week we'd be doing like something based on Gulliver's Travel with R2D2 and that's obviously geared towards toddler set. And then the next week you'd be doing one that's beheading someone and, someone, you're like, whoa, like it's awesome. But, I think that might've been one of the things early on too, when it was straight on Cartoon Network, is I don't know that families knew what to expect.
Right.
So they didn't kind of know, I can imagine being a father and turning in with my 5-year-old daughter. And then all of a sudden I see slavery and beheadings and I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
I'll watch this on my own, and I'm not going to watch it with the kids.
I feel like because I was one of those rare friends, I feel like, that I was watching as they were being released season after season. And I remember that I felt like season 4 was that turn from like, this is a grown up show, man.
Yeah.
This is some great, some great storytelling, So a lot of, like you just described, a lot of hard topics and a lot of, but it's so good, and of course I think a lot of that had to do with Ahsoka growing up and then, the war getting worse. And then of course Maul returning and stuff like that. So, so then in season 5, you did episode 9 and 10, which was A Necessary Bond and Secret Weapons. And
Jedi Who Knew Too Much was in that one too.
And then season 18 or episode 18 of season 5, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much.
Yeah.
Which was the Ahsoka arc leading up to her.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites that I've done.
It's that whole those 4 episodes. Hands down.
We won an Emmy for those. So yeah. And I agree. That was some of the best storytelling of the whole show.
So
I think at first that was meant to be the finale.
Yes, it felt like a finale. It totally felt like it.
I think at the time it was intended to be. I think folks kind of knew like we might not be making more of these, and that was kind of. I think Dave had other stories like he wanted to tell with Ahsoka, or like he had a lot of different ideas on how maybe he wanted her story to end or go on. But at that point, that was like, this is the final Clone Wars episode.
So that's kind of where that's definitely what my question was going to be, because it did feel like a finale. Did you all know at all at any point how the show was going to end? Was it always going to be Siege of Mandalore, or was it you just didn't know?
We didn't. I mean, I'm sure Dave or George had kind of like a rough idea,
Yeah.
But it was never like. When we were making those episodes, I think there was a sense of finality to it, but no one really knew, like, until the deal was made, right? Until the Disney deal was made. And I think that was, you hear about, George wanted to build a live action studio down the street from where we were making Clone Wars. And, the city kept pushing back on him, and there was plans. There were these really beautiful plans drawn up. You can see them online. I'm not saying anything that's not known.
Yeah.
But I think this is just me. This is not conversations I've had with anybody, but I think maybe that not happening maybe started to put this retiring thing in his mind. Because, if he had like 100 scripts to do live action shows and wanted to build a live action studio to do this, that's not retirement in my mind.
No.
So he doesn't get approval for that. I think then he starts entertaining ideas when people like Bob Iger come knocking and being like, hey, would you want to sell? And then I think he's like, you know what? Maybe it's time,
Because plus we had heard now too that he was in the middle of thinking about doing 7, 8, and 9 himself also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
interesting.
I think that you can blame the city for.
Was it San Francisco? Was the one?
Yeah, it's kind of like I guess it would be Marin County.
Marin County.
He's done a lot for the area. The area is beautiful. The city is fantastic. I lived in the area, so obviously I love it. And he's run into that, like trying to build the museum, right?
Right.
The pushback that he's gotten, that he got from Chicago and San Francisco, you'd think let him build it where he wants, man. You know?
Yeah. Gosh, yeah.
It's interesting you said, oh, sorry, go ahead. Talking about like air order versus when we made it.
Yes.
Like the first episode I directed was the R2-3PO, was that Mercy mission, I think. And then the second one I did was the underwater water war episode.
Prisoners, yeah. Right? Prisoners.
Is it Prisoners or is it Water War? Or I know, maybe
it was called Prisoners. Okay, part of that first.
So that was the premiere.
The Mon Cala, right? The Mon Cala
right.
arc,
so that ended up being like the first. That was like the premiere of season 4, even though it was like the second or third episode that I directed.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that just to kind of give you a sense of like maybe how air orders changed and kind of like, you know, we don't want to necessarily start with this. This is totally. The lead off. Yeah.
So after the show gets canceled, of course, later on, they do announce that they are going to release season 6 called The Lost Missions.
Yeah.
And you directed 3 of those. Episode 3, which was called Fugitive. Episode 6, which was The Rise of Clovis, which was great. And then episode 11.
I love that you like that one.
Favorite character, Yoda, called Voices.
I love that episode. Yeah. But
yeah,
I love Yoda too. Like I said, I think the explanation and your introduction to the Force and Empire Strikes Back and that teaching moment with Luke, you know, was a huge impressionistic time for me as a kid. But yeah, I love that episode. One, because it shows like the doubt in the Jedi Order and that they're not as powerful and that you think. I mean, obviously after seeing the movies, you knew that, but this, at least in Clone Wars, you know, and Yoda hears a voice and Yoda's freaked out about it. Yes. Like Yoda actually questions his own sanity. And like the other Jedi are like, what's going on, Master Yoda? You know, maybe he's getting too old. Like, you know, you see weakness in these guys. I loved, you know, creating a scene where they all get together. Like there's always like the Jedi in the background of the temple that you always wanted to see, like Oppo Rancisis and, you know, all these weird, like, I want to see his tail, you know, like this is like me as a fan. I'm like, okay, I need a shot. So like they all come together and meditate in the center of the Jedi temple to kind of figure out what's going on. And I'm like, I want to see Oppo Rancisis' tail like slither out through the chair, because you see him and you're like, how the hell does Oppo Rancisis sit in a chair unless he's like curled up on his tail like a snake, you know? Like
that's true. Oh my god!
It's like I gotta explain this to the fans. This was funny because when we did the you'll remind me, the Mon Cala episode, I don't remember. So Admiral Akbar as an action figure came with this little black baton. I don't know if you remember this.
I don't remember that. But
okay, so look at the actual original figure. And I always, as a kid, remember like, what the hell is that, right? Because you don't, you know, he's just flying a ship and he doesn't do anything. I'm like, is that just like a, you know, he's like, you know, this is what, you know, it's a baton that he teaches with, or like, what do you? So I remember going, I was like, Dave, can we use that and like make it a gun or something? He's like, yes. So if you see it, like Akbar actually has that and he uses it as a weapon.
He does. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
There's a little tidbit of like trying to like, again, sorry, I came
explain something, right?
Or,
yes.
Yeah. You're like, oh, these are like things as a fan that I look in the background and you're like, who the hell is that? That guy is awesome. He's a snake and he's got a beard and we need to see more of him. And there's obviously more of him now in the comics and that, but
that is hilarious.
But anyway, back to the voices. You know, there's self-doubt there. You know, Yoda goes into this deprivation chamber, and we get to see Dagobah for the first time, which was awesome.
Yes.
And then one of my favorite parts about that is that, you know, Yoda calls Anakin to help him escape. Like Yoda's essentially kind of on medical lockdown. He's like in the hospital, and there's royal guards standing there, temple guards to kind of, you know, he can't really go. Like, you know, he's like, look, Anakin's like, you're not a prisoner there. And he's like, well, really? Am I? And
Yeah.
I show the guards like, yeah, he's kind of a prisoner. So he brings Anakin there to kind of help him sneak out. And I love that he kind of recognizes that Anakin has a different way of solving things.
Yeah.
It's not like Obi-Wan. So he's like, I'm going to call the guy that I know will support me trying to figure out the answers. So like having Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of work together, or Anakin and Yoda work together to free Yoda there. I always love that. But then again, just Yoda with Obi-Wan. And
yes,
I'm like a lot of people where when I first heard about midichlorians, I was like, don't try to science off the Force, like especially, growing up loving that Yoda Luke scene and like thinking of it, not necessarily as a religion, but something that's a little bit more spiritual. And
yes,
the first side of like hearing about midichlorians, it kind of took that away. Right. So I'm with folks in that camp. But I thought like that was kind of like the first kind of explanation of the cosmic force and and how that plays in with the living force, and I loved like that moment. And one of the things that was just, again, talking about walking and talking, the original script was like there was a light and there's this long dialogue. It's just Obi and Yoda talking, right?
Yeah.
So like I pitched the idea to Dave of like, can we make this almost like the burning bush, make it more biblical, and like, can they be like little fireflies? So like there's an actual character or something physical that Yoda can speak to. Like it's Qui-Gon's voice, but there's little objects that he can speak to, and like seeing them land on things kind of creates like this biblical kind of thing. And then also, can we build multiple parts of Dagobah so that Yoda can swing across the vine or walk through the tree? Let's show some physical action. It's not an action scene, but we need to like show something to make all of this monologue as interesting as possible. So that was a lot of fun. And I always love those Jedi starfighters, like the fact that Yoda had his own little mini one. And R2 goes on a trip with him to Dagobah. So you're like, wait, when Luke goes there, R2's like, shit, bitch, I've been here before. Yeah.
Yes. I know. I love that. But that episode though kicked off, those last three
another
episodes.
Great arc. Yeah. The Ahsoka arc and that Yoda arc are really great stuff.
And I would argue that this Yoda arc is so relevant, one of the most relevant stories, because there's always been these lingering questions around Force ghosts, and why did Ben or Obi-Wan disappear right away? Why didn't Qui-Gon disappear? Because when we first watched episode 1, that was one of the big questions. Why didn't he disappear? Isn't he gonna be? Don't all Jedi become Force ghosts?
Yeah.
And then of course
it's relevant now too with Obi-Wan.
Absolutely. So at the end of episode 3, when Yoda's explaining, training do I have for you to be able to master this,
which is awesome, man.
Then it becomes, well, how did Anakin figure it out at the end of Return of the Jedi? So how much?
I'm excited. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was about to say, just how much when you were doing this episode, how much of that was flushed out, or was it flushed out at all? Like the rules, or are the rules obviously there's that rule that has been established now about the training side of things.
Yeah.
That Yoda, but how do we explain, and then how do we explain all the voices that we hear in Rise of Skywalker? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot there that still has to be explained, in my opinion.
I don't know that there was ever, I think now there's probably more of a finalized solution to that. But I think when we were making it, there was certain things that we were aware of. I'm sure like George had a more concrete idea, and obviously Dave does now. And I think obviously all of the stories that Dave's told since that point, that's been more concrete, and he's got obviously more clout to explain what that really means than I do. But, getting on how, what your midichlorian level is, what is your connection to them, where were you at when you were trained, and how in touch are you with that side of it? When in A New Hope, we were talking about this, in A New Hope, Obi-Wan gets cut down by Vader, and probably like less than a minute later, he's talking to Luke.
Yes.
Like Luke can hear him right away.
Yes.
So I think, like you said, it's kind of poignant now because we're getting into the Obi-Wan live action series. I'm really excited to see Obi-Wan do this training. I want to see Obi-Wan finally hear Qui-Gon. Because like in this, Yoda freaks when he hears Qui-Gon. So it wasn't like a thing.
Yes.
And then in the Yoda episode, Yoda can hear Qui-Gon, and Yoda's like, "Where are you? Like, can I see you?" And Qui-Gon says, "No, I didn't complete my training." So it's like, that there is a way to focus and communicate and train.
Get there. Yep.
So I'm excited to see, I hope they maybe at least start touching upon the fact that Obi-Wan is training to do this.
Yes.
Because Yoda obviously does go through this. The fact that Yoda is on Dagobah, which is like one of the most Force-attuned planets, and he's had all this time to do it, he's obviously someone who can appear. Obi-Wan is the first one we see appear, so he's obviously been somewhere to communicate. I'll be interested to see if he remains on Tatooine. I'm assuming he will, whether this series leaves him on Tatooine watching over Luke, or if he's somewhere else. Because it's supposed to be, this is supposed to be a finite show, right? There's not going to be a season 2 of Obi-Wan.
There's rumors going around now that
they say it's finite until it's really
exactly.
Yeah, it's really popular. Successful, and then and as it's going right now, I don't know what the budget is, but at least the first 2 episodes were so well made. I love Deborah Chow, and she did some of my favorite Mandalorian episodes.
Yes.
So just the scale and how solid those first 2 episodes felt. The third one obviously ending with
yes.
I wasn't on board with the third one until the ending, and you're like, all right, here we go. But to answer your question, I think it's kind of like it's definitely part of the cosmic and the living force, and your connection with that. I think whether it's spoken about or not, I think there is something to do with how force sensitive you are. And I think by saying how force sensitive you are is probably a better way than saying your midichlorian count is high.
Totally.
If someone's a doctor's going to look at your blood sample and be like, Master Yoda's midichlorian count's off the charts, versus saying, Yoda is the most in tune Jedi there was, right? For me, I want to hear it said that way. Yes, maybe his midichlorian levels are off the charts, but I don't want to know his blood glucose level.
That's right. No. Yeah. You can tell me without telling me. Yeah.
Right.
That's exactly right. One thing, I don't know if we talked about this project today, but I don't know if you thought about this ever. I'm sure you have. What would be your dream Star Wars project to work on? Do you have one? Would it be animation? Would it be live action? Would it be?
I don't know. I guess either. I love what I.
How about this then? Let's narrow it down. Then what characters or what stories would you?
What I was going to say is I like the idea of what Tales of the Jedi is. I like the anthology idea. It looks like they're all done in the same style. I would love to see it go to where every episode was kind of done in a little different style, similar to kind of Love, Death, Robots that's out there. I don't know. One thing I always loved, the Cut LaQuaine story, who was the kind of the former stormtrooper or the former clone trooper who started his own family.
Yes.
The idea that there's this person with a past who's abandoned it, but then needs to. I would love to kind of maybe do an animated or a live action thing that kind of touches upon that. And it's interesting because there's, the classic hero's tale where you refuse the call, right? You have to refuse the call before you embrace it. You feel that a lot in the Obi-Wan series right now. You know, Obi's been away for 10 years. He's, you know, upset at himself and kind of a little bit of self-loathing at this point. You know, his force powers are rusty, because that was kind of cool about this third one. It's like, you obviously, you know, he's not waving off stormtroopers to say these aren't the droids you're looking for. Yeah. And he's very hesitant to pick up his lightsaber. You know, he's rusty.
Right.
So that kind of idea of like refusing your past and then re-embracing it, I think is very interesting. But yeah, great. I don't know, like, I can't, like, I mean, I had a blast working on Clone Wars, but I think maybe in a general term, I think maybe working on a smaller kind of vignette story in some part of the universe would be something I'd love to do. I would love to do voice.
Yeah.
Oh, there was another unproduced episode. I did 2 voices of these droids. And Dave at the point was like, you're going to be that voice of that one, right? And it never happened.
Oh, man.
So maybe like that might be something that would be fun too, is just to do that and have a little fun.
Yeah. I tell you one animation show. I thought of animation at first before these live action shows came out, so maybe it could be live action. But I think an animated show I would love to see, and I think you can make. I mean, it's kind of Clone Wars-ish, but...
Well, Younglings. I'm sorry, I'm just popping in my head. Go ahead, sorry to interrupt. Things are popping into my head now.
Yeah. What I was about to say was, it seems like, you know, prior to episode 1, you know, when you had the Jedis and all the Jedi and all that stuff, it seemed like, you know, when an issue came up or there's a serpent somewhere, they would always send, you know, a master and apprentice out there. I feel like following a master and apprentice, no one that we know of, not Obi-Wan, not quite, you know, just a new set of Jedi, and maybe there's a few of them that we follow. I just thought that just on one of their missions, yeah. I mean, who was it? I really loved that about, was it Kit Fisto and Nadar?
Yes. That's when you mentioned that kind of brought them up. Yeah, I love that.
But the youngling things is a great idea too.
Yeah, like for me, like who knows? Like I'm kind of who is the girl who is trying to be the Grand Inquisitor now? I forget her character's name.
Reva,
yeah. I'm wondering if Reva was a youngling.
I know that's rumored. That's rumors out there.
Because I feel like she's obviously got a vendetta against Obi-Wan. And I wonder if she felt like she was left behind in the temple, or, you know, she was hiding while she was in the temple and she saw Obi-Wan leave, you know, and that's kind of like, I feel like maybe Reva was young, but those are kind of the stories, like there are survivors. So where are those younglings now? Or like you said, maybe it's back in the day and it was a youngling's journey. Like, I think, you know, can you do Goonies with younglings? You know?
Yeah, absolutely could. I think, yeah.
Cross a Goonies movie, but with like youngling Jedis, I think it would be fun.
Which is, you know, it's not younglings, but it's a young group. Did you hear about the new show Skeleton Crew that Celebration announced?
Yes, yeah, with Jude Law, right?
Jude Law, yeah. It's about kids lost in the galaxy, apparently.
Yeah, so maybe that is younglings.
I feel like it's like a Goonies type, Super 8 type of thing, you know. So, but that's, I think there's a lot of great stuff that who knows if they'll make or not. But, okay, so let's dive into just, you know, get your opinion on a little bit of what Disney has done since, because again, like we talked about, you exited Clone Wars when the buyout pretty much happened.
Yeah. So I definitely went on I wouldn't call it a Star Wars burnout, but I think I kind of felt like I needed to step away.
Yeah. Sure.
Because it just felt like there was too much Star Wars, and it was like, you know, and I was with it for so long. So there was definitely a moment where I had to step away. So when things first started coming out, I had to put it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't want any cynicism to weigh against my opinion of this, or like kind of having Star Wars burnout. But I didn't think Rebels really got going until they brought back Clone Wars characters.
Correct.
Like before Rex, before Ahsoka, I don't think it really had its footing. And I think that was also at the time when I talk about family, like, you know, the Ghost crew finally became like a family. So once that started hitting, I think that show started to take off.
Agreed.
Yeah. Resistance, I love the guy. Justin Ridge is amazing. And I love the style of that show, and I love the speed and the racing of it. But that never really resonated with me. I don't
think the story was there.
Yeah. I and I don't know that Poe needed to be there. Like there was like it felt like maybe there was a lot of cross like pollination, like, well, we got to support the movie that's coming out, and it never became its own thing.
Right.
Bad Batch is cool. Like Bad Batch was like a set of episodes of Clone Wars that didn't get produced and turned into a thing. But again, it's Clone Wars, right? It's like the Clone Wars. Like I love that there was what was the hashtag?
Clone Wars saved.
Clone Wars saved.
Yes.
Amen. Like Clone Wars should never have been canceled.
No, should
not have been. Like I think like, and now you're seeing it in the live action, right?
I know.
So I think all of the stuff is amazing, you know, like for me, like I'm like anyone, I loved Boba Fett as a kid. You know, for my grandma used to have me name all the figures, and she would always call it Boba Feets. So like for Boba Feets, you know, but it was interesting because when Mando first came out, I was like, cool, here's like a fresh thing that's taking place apart from the Skywalker story. So when Luke showed up, I had mixed feelings because I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But, oh man, now we're just back in the Skywalker universe again, right? Like it felt like it was its own thing, like with like the Darksaber and that tying it kind of to Clone Wars and that Mandalorian history. But Luke came in, I was like, shoot, now we're back to where we were, right? Now we're holding on to the pre-existing, like we're inventing new, forward. But without, like it wasn't a complete move forward. So that was kind of my feelings on that. But, you know, to be able to do, I think that was when we talk about George and having the scripts and building a live action stage, you know, that was his dream. It's like to make affordable, efficient live action shows that looked a lot more expensive than they were.
Right.
And the deep fake was not there, you know, by any means, but the fact that it was attempted on an episodic television show. But, you know, now things have changed so quickly, you know, with streaming. And I think the viewers are so much more sophisticated now, and the expectation levels are that much higher that some of this stuff you just can't, you can't let out, right? Until it's been vetted and polished. You know, talking about the Lone Wolf and Cub thing about Leia and Obi-Wan and the new Obi-Wan series, well, and bringing family.
Yes.
Mando didn't hit until you had Grogu and Mando, right?
Right.
Whether Grogu was Baby Yoda or not, it was a child that Mando cared about, and there was a connection there, and then the fear of loss immediately happened. Like whether you think you care about it or not, like obviously I love the vehicles and I love the action and all of that, but that's what gravitates through, right? That connection gives you opportunities for heart, but it also gives you opportunities for comedy.
Yes.
Like that's the action adventure. It's like you have to have the humor as well as the heart.
Absolutely.
So I love that about, like, you know, the Mando and Grogu relationship. Again, like I think Boba Fett, I was excited about it. I think it's set it up to be something. For me, any great story, you know, I'm not the first person to say this, but any great story needs a great villain. Like Star Wars is so good because of Vader, right?
Yeah.
Boba, I think the first kind of like conflict, like Obi-Wan, the first two episodes are so amazing because you have the Inquisitors, but then not only do you have the Inquisitors, but there's conflict within the Inquisitors between the Grand Inquisitor and Reva. Like that immediately like sets it up. There's like some juice there. There was never really a true antagonist in Boba Fett. The twins, the Hutt twins come in the I think second episode, and you're like, okay, cool, here we go. But then they leave.
Yeah. And even Chrysanthemum's introduced then and leaves.
Yeah. Chrysanthemum literally just walks off the frame.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, then you finally get like, oh, Cad Bane. All right. Cad Bane is like the juice. Like this is the conflict and the obstacle we've been looking for. And he's gone.
Yeah.
That was kind of like a disappointment for me. And I think a lot of people, it never really picked up until it became Mandalorian season 3.
I know.
But it was weird because I feel like when Mandalorian walks into that, like, I think it's like a meat locker or whatever.
Yes.
Like, I almost like, you know what, that could have been episode 1.
Yeah.
Because I think there's something like, all right, I need to go find help, right? Like that could have been episode 1, and it says I need to go find help, and then cut to Boba Fett, right? Because he's going to get to Boba Fett.
Yeah, I was more interested in his life with the Tuscans.
I agree.
I love that.
Yeah, that was like an origin story, right? You like you have this death and rebirth. You have like a weapon forging moment.
Yeah,
like that's awesome. That I wanted the Tuscans. So at the end, right, they're all kind of hunkered down, like wishing someone would come and help them. I wanted that to be the Tuscan Raiders.
Yes.
Like the Tuscan Raiders should not have died, like, and been massacred. Like the Tuscans should have come back and helped fight the Empire back, and kind of like it's like you're setting up Act 3 and Act 1, right?
Yes.
And there was so much set up at the beginning that never had a payoff.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest setup was obviously the Rancor, which was awesome. Some really great work on that, but. Yeah, I was definitely very disappointed on Book of Boba Fett. And like, you know, kind of again, it's like mixed feelings with like Luke coming back and then Luke training Grogu. Which is cool and fun, but like I know there was a moment there, obviously like the deepfake had gotten better, but you could still tell they were shooting around it and not Luke was being like very spiritual, but it kind of felt like he wasn't saying much because you can't have him talk a whole lot because it's hard.
Yeah.
But there was like, so again, like I love teaching moments and I love training moments. It's seeing Luke with Grogu. Like there's the bit where like with the frogs and that's kind of cool. But then it cuts and like you see like thousands of robots come and build this temple.
Yes.
And I'm like, the temple, again, kind of getting between the science and the religion of it. Like the temple is this spiritual thing. One, where did all these robots come from?
Right.
2, why wasn't that the training, right? Like, why wasn't the training Grogu lifting a rock and putting it on there and then one at a time, and then him and Luke working together? Because then you've built this thing together and it gives it history. Like, there were things like that I'm like, oh, man. It's not that it's wrong or it's right. It just kind of like takes a little bit away from it. And then 2, you start questioning, like, is Luke a shitty teacher? Are the Jedi shitty teachers, right?
Good question.
You know, Luke and, you know, if you know, friends came and like nurtured Anakin, he wouldn't have turned, right?
No, that's right.
Like if anyone was there, like it would not have happened.
No, would not have happened.
Yeah. Anyway, that's kind of like it. Like I'm excited like anyone, but for me, like feeling like this is like where we've come. Like I think the latest Obi-Wan episodes are there. Like you see, okay, maybe some of the growing pains of the virtual production and stagecraft has been worked out, and now we're witnessing like the awesome power of like what an episodic TV show can be. And like, you know, Jon Favreau, God bless him, is like he kicked Marvel off, right, with doing an amazing Iron Man movie. And then, maybe there's some things that don't work about that first one, but then look at where Marvel is now. Based on that, it's kind of like, okay, look at what Favreau helped kickstart with the Star Wars universe. We'll see where it goes now. But,
and I think he tends to seem like he's just a big fan, just like all of us. And,
exactly.
And I love how he always says that, George built this and it's our responsibility to take care of it.
He's the maker, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you just that's all you want. You want people that care about it. And you
have to honor it, and you also can't let it paralyze you, right?
Right.
The paralysis by analysis. It's like the great thing is that George is still with us, right? George is still alive.
That's right.
And like I always give thanks to Dave for like bringing me along on this journey to kind of like learn alongside him with George, as George was like teaching just not only like Star Wars, but also like being like, I call it my graduate film school, right? Because we were like shooting live action, and George brought like, Walter Murch, who was a director, but was Coppola's editor. He edited on Apocalypse Now. He's an amazing sound designer. Like he would bring Dwayne Dunham, who was the editor on Return of the Jedi, has amazing stories. Brought those guys in to work alongside of us on Clone Wars. And that was like having like graduate teachers come in, and kind of like learn. And that was kind of the same thing. Is like, we knew the software. It was kind of like how I was talking about when I was at Disney, where you had these masters that have been doing it for a long time, needing to learn things from you, so you didn't feel as bad picking their brain. Walter was awesome. Like, sorry to get tangent, he would always give us little like fortune cookie sayings. It was from the cinematography book. I forget the cinematographer. Do I even have it? But he had cut the sayings out into little fortune cookie papers, and he would give them to us one every day, which was like an awesome little thing. But again, to like, George kind of came up with this, like this was an independent film director with his own ideas and his own dreams. And, it's turned into what it is, which is amazing.
It truly is amazing what it has done and become, and I mean, just the global imprint that.
And we're sitting here talking about it.
I mean, I work.
There's giant conventions of masses of people, like, sharing their experiences, and I mean, it's, anything you work on. Like, I can watch episodes or things I've worked on in the past, and it becomes like a visual diary. Like, it's not about the work, but I remember like, we got our dog when we were working on that episode, right? Like, or my grandma passed away during this time in my life. Like it's like sharing anything with your family or friends. It's like Star Wars is that, right? It's not just the stories. It's like, I know you have these stories of like, camping overnight, waiting to see the films, right? Or seeing this film 6 different times with this part. It's those stories that keep it around, the shared experiences.
And then the generational aspect of it as well, because I'm watching my daughters grow up with it now, and it's amazing seeing them light up. And like my oldest daughter, she's in 6th grade, and her last day of school was when Obi-Wan premiered those 2 episodes. And she's like, Dad, make sure I don't care what time it is, wake me up. I want to watch them before we go to school. So we got up at 5 a.m.
That's awesome.
And watched these 2 episodes.
Yeah, that's it, man.
You're talking about family. That's it, man.
I'm like, my daughter's 5.
Okay.
And she loves Star Wars, but I started sharing parts of the movie, but she's not quite there. I'm going to wait on that. But she, Rise of the Resistance, oh God, Smuggler's Run. She is all about those rides at Disneyland. And she loves Rey. I've showed her little bits of that. And that's one thing I just saw that I was not aware of is there's a 2D animated show. It looks like there's a little pit droid that kind of goes through the universe and finds the different monsters, like the bestiary of Star Wars. Have you seen this?
No,
I don't know if it's on Disney Junior, but it's kind of like a nature show, like an animated nature show, but a pit droid is the lead character, and it's anyway.
That might be on Star Wars Kids.
Okay, but anyway, things like that, I'm like, oh, that's something that she would love because like her amount of curiosity is super high, and about
she probably loved Forces of Destiny too. Those
those
shorts,
the little snippets. Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. Like being able to share that,
oh man,
is what makes it.
And see, and like I don't think I've even mentioned this on my other show is, that first episode of Obi-Wan, when you first see Leia running through the forest, like I'm telling you, I got emotional, man. I'm like,
yeah,
Leia being such a powerful character, and obviously, with Carrie not even with us anymore, you can't see it, but above my computer here is this picture. It's Leia, Princess Leia in the A New Hope outfit and whatnot. They gave that away. It's a poster that they gave away at Celebration, the first one after she had passed. So my favorite picture is by far my favorite picture. And just seeing young Leia, like I just never thought if I saw a young Leia that wasn't Carrie Fisher, how I'd feel. But it was the best part of that.
Yes. One of the best parts of that series. Like I had never even thought about her involvement to that degree.
Correct.
But the way that she's being used, like again, the family and the lone wolf and cub part of it, she's being used so perfectly. Like, and this show wouldn't have been as exciting from a marketing standpoint if they called it Princess Leia, right?
Yes. True.
Unfortunately.
Just like they don't call the other one Grogu.
Right. But in a way it could very well be that, right? Because there's so much about like hinting at her strength and her inquisitiveness, and I love it.
You're seeing the birth of Princess Leia. Totally. I love it because
the casting is perfect.
It is. Oh my God. That scene with her and Bale on the balcony.
Yeah.
About being.
But they set it up again, like you set up Act 3 in Act 1 as, they set her up as this precocious child who wants to escape and be independent, and she runs away. So you buy that she would run out and get accidentally kidnapped, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't see that she likes to misbehave and climb trees, then when she does run away and gets kidnapped, you wouldn't buy that moment, right?
No.
But you totally buy it because that's who she is. And now, you see like she actually feels sorry about the fact that she's causing. Yeah. I love that stuff. Yeah. Like I said, even if you either love or hate your family, but there are emotions there.
Yes.
So any story that can bring that in, and especially Star Wars is obviously about family and whether it's clones as a brotherhood or fellowship. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Definitely. I mean, the huge part of my life as it is yours. So
yeah.
Let's get kind of wrapping this up and talk a little bit about this. What do you got? That little figure that you want to?
Oh yeah,
talk about?
We were talking about beforehand.
About
we're knowing that I was going to do the show kind of brought up a lot of Star Wars memories, and it was just Memorial Day.
Yes.
And I remembered I had done like this little painted trooper. I don't know if you can see it here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I painted. It's kind of blurry. I don't know. But I painted it to be. It's got U.S. Army decals on there.
Yes.
But I painted it as kind of like my dad's a vet, as like a salute to our troops. And I always intended to kind of give it to someone who was a vet that also happened to be an amazing Star Wars fan.
That's awesome.
So I don't know if any of your listeners are that, or if your listeners know someone who is a Star Wars fan and is a vet.
Yes.
Let me know or let you know, and I'm happy to get this over to them. I'm not a big social media fan. I do Instagram, I think just Danny_Keller.
Yeah.
I don't post a lot, but if you want to hit me up there or hit you up, and
you can. I'll post about it, and then I'll get. I got a little bit on social we can follow through.
Yeah, we'll find a good home.
There's definitely big Star Wars groups that we can talk to and find somebody. I think that'd be great to find somebody to have that. I think that's a great thing to do. So I will get back to you on that about finding a good.
And if there's any Bengals fans, no. I'm not going to give away this.
No way.
No, I'm sorry.
If anybody, I'm taking it.
Yeah. No, this was
that's awesome.
This was my favorite phase trooper helmet. And I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan. Obviously, we talked about that.
Yes.
So I always wanted to paint a stormtrooper helmet like that. So of course, the one of the biggest rivalries of the Cincinnati Bengals are the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Dave Filoni happens to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So Dave then painted a Vader helmet like the Steelers. And we always joked that we were going to do a Star Wars NFL show, like where we would just do NFL highlights, but talk about Star Wars. Like we were actually going to do like a podcast. It never happened.
Oh,
but like
man.
we were talking about, like, I can't believe the NFL has not done a partnership with Star Wars where we have like helmets of different NFL teams, but maybe we'll see it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. My fantasy team is Star Wars related always. My fantasy, I'm the Stormtroopers, and some people have made those. They've made helmets with like a decal from like Star Wars or something like that. So like I switched that up and used that up as my fantasy team. But that's amazing that they haven't done that yet.
Yeah, like a Raiders biker style helmet. Or,
oh my god.
Yeah, it would definitely. Yeah.
Watch, they're going to do it next season. They're going to be like, we heard Danny Keller talk about this.
There's an NFL marketing exec that listens to your podcast religiously. They're on your Patreon. You don't even know it.
I don't even know it. Right. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Say you never know. This happens all the time.
I know it. Well, man, Danny, this is so awesome. We talked for a couple hours now.
Yeah, it's been great.
Didn't even feel like it.
It did not. Like even when you said we're running long, I'm like, oh. I guess it was already dark here, and
it's definitely already dark here. I'm actually I don't know if I told you, I'm actually coming to in 12 days. I'm coming to Disneyland.
All right. Well, I'm in the Bay Area. I'm not in LA.
Yeah, I know.
But if you get up to the Bay Area, let me know.
Man, I would love. One of my bucket lists is obviously touring Lucasfilm, and you're walking by the Yoda statue out front there. So
yeah. And the ranch, man, if you can ever make it to the ranch, the ranch is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. But
I miss the lunches, just going to have lunch there. Just absolutely beautiful place. But yeah, man, it's been awesome to catch up. And again, congratulations on this awesome podcast. Again, folks are lucky to have you doing this as often as you do. And yeah, it's a good time, right? There's so much material now.
It totally is.
So it's an exciting time to be a fan.
Yeah. So we will follow up with you as often as we can, Danny. I appreciate you coming on here.
Yeah, let me know anytime.
Yeah, this is fantastic. And everybody follow him, follow up on Danny at dannykeller.com. Of course, I'll post about the figure there. We'll find a vet that we can get that to. And if you got any questions or comments that I can send over to Danny, just let me know.
Yeah.
I can get
Danny _Keller, I think, is the
Instagram.
Again, I'm sorry, I can check, but just ping you. And
that's fine. Yeah, well, they can find you on there.
I should be. I need to get on that more often.
Trust me. I especially at this show, we could always do it better. But I appreciate all everybody watching, everybody listening. Again, go to youtube.com/Inside the Force to watch us. Of course, we're on all the podcast feeds if you want to keep listening there. But thanks, Danny. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. See you, everybody. May the Force be with you.